All right, everybody, we're back from our cleanup, excuse me. And I've gone ahead and I've started to just do a little bit of mise en place for our tomato sauce. So I've already minced up my garlic. I use 3 cloves of garlic. You guys know how I feel about garlic, and not using too much of it for myself. By all means, guys, you guys have plenty of garlic, so if you like more garlic, by all means, feel free. And then what I did is I've taken the other half of that onion that I did not use from the meatballs, and I'm going to just mince that up as well too. The same way, right? Just 1/8 of an inch in one direction, 1/8 of an inch going in the other direction. And that's just to use up that onion. It'll add a nice little sweet flavor to it. So I don't want it to go to waste or go bad. So I'm just going to add a little bit of onion to my tomato sauce. And that's the nice thing about tomato sauce is you can kind of make it any way you like. In regards to if you want to leave the onions out, add the onions. Whatever you want to do works. And I use kind of an all-purpose tomato sauce. So my tomato sauce, can be used to make a lasagna with. My tomato sauce can be used to make a pizza with. My basic tomato sauce is, how I just want it a base. So I've got my crushed tomatoes. I've got a little tomato paste, salt, pepper, Italian seasoning, garlic, onions, olive oil. I'll just leave the onions right where they're at. So that's what I do, and I do add a little bit of sugar to it. And again, it's an all-purpose kind of tomato sauce. So everybody makes theirs a little different. In Italy, just like in every Mexican household, tamales are made slightly different than your neighbor. So there's really no right or wrong. Tomato sauce needs to be exactly that. Tomatoes. Whether you use crushed tomatoes or diced tomatoes, fire roasted tomatoes, tomato paste, little tomato sauce, that's a combination of, that's up to the individual. I do like a little bit of garlic, I like a little bit of onion, a little bit of Italian seasoning, so that's what I'm going to kind of do at that point, or at this point, excuse me. All right, so I'm just going to move my cutting board out of the way, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to get started. So I'm going to move that over to here. Let me reposition that camera. Let me just make double check. All right. I don't want to get too close to the stove. I don't want it to melt my tripod. Okay, so we're going to turn that on. I've got my heat on. I've got all my ingredients that I need. I need my trusty wooden spoon. And we're just going to wait for that to warm up a little bit. Okay, so now that we are 5 weeks, 6 weeks into school, you're going to notice that with some of these demos that I'm doing, I'm not going to go over each minuscule step, especially if it's steps that we've repeated numerous times, like mincing garlic. You guys know how to mince garlic. You don't need me to show you for the 6th time how to mince garlic. Onions, I just showed you that. The tomato sauce, yeah, we'll go over that. Make sure that we're all kind of doing it correctly. So I'm just checking the heat of my pan, just kind of touching my fingernails to the bottom. If it's warm to my fingernails, I know that the pan is getting to the point where we can start to add our ingredients. So the first thing we want to do is add some olive oil. And I'm going to add about 1 ounce of olive oil. So about half that container's worth. Enough to easily collect in the bottom. All right, after that, I want to sweat my onions. So I'm going to take my onions and let's just do it that way. And I'm going to add my onions. Okay, just like that. Just rinsing off my board real quick. Okay. All right, next is to give it a little stir and turn down my heat. Now in this case, we're just sweating, okay? So that means that we don't want to see any color. We're not going to saute to where we can see color. We just want those onions to become translucent. And they're real close to being there already. So we'll add our garlic. We'll mix that in. Okay. It's really start to smell that garlic and the onions now. All right, the next thing I'll do is I'm going to add some tomato paste. Turn my heat up just a little bit. That's good. So now I'm going to add a nice heaping teaspoon of tomato paste. There we go. And I'm going to cook that. I'm going to break that down. And I want to cook that until the color changes to red to rusty, which won't take long. Okay. Don't want to burn. Okay. Make sure we got all of our mise en place. Turn my heat up just a little bit. All right, so you can kind of see now that the bottom is bubbling a little bit. You can hear the sizzle. The tomato paste is now kind of worked in with the onions and kind of liquefied a little bit. It's got a really rich tomato flavor. And that's because, again, tomato paste is just concentrated tomatoes. Okay, I can see now that it's starting to turn a rusty color. It has kind of an orange hue to it now. I don't know if you can really see that, but it has kind of an orangish color. It's not as red as it used to be. So when you look at the two, you know, one's certainly more red, one has more of an orange tint. That tells me that it's now time to add my tomato, my crushed tomato, my other tomato product. Okay, so I'm going to add my crushed tomatoes. And water. So I measured out a cup of water. I'm going to add my water. This brand of crushed tomatoes looks more like tomato paste than it looks like crushed tomatoes. It's very thick. It's thicker than the last brand that I had. So I am going to add another half a cup of water. Okay. And the rest of my tomato. Okay, that's good. Give that a little stir. And I'm going to add a little more water. So in total, I've added 2 cups of water. So I believe it was 3 cups of crushed tomatoes, about 2 ounces of tomato paste, 1/4 cup of minced onion, 3 cloves of minced garlic. And again, that was for me. And then the last thing I want to add is I'm going to add a little more olive oil. Another ounce of olive oil I'm going to add. Just adds a nice richness to it. Now I've got to season, so I'm going to add some salt. 1, 2 teaspoons of salt. 1 teaspoon of black pepper. 1 teaspoon of sugar. And I use, mine is sugar in the raw. That's why it has kind of a orange color to it. That means that there's still a little bit of molasses. If you're using white, pure cane sugar, it'll be the same amount. All right, then the last one is our Italian seasoning. One tablespoon, sorry. 1 tablespoon, okay. Crush it a little bit. That helps release the oil. That is in the leaves. So that's 1 tablespoon. And let's just kind of see how that works first. I can always add more. So I'm going to stir that in. And then I want that to cook for a little while. I still see that it's got a lot of thickness to it. This is the end result. That's what I want, you know, as far as what it'll look like when it's done. But it's got to cook a little while, which means that it's going to evaporate. So I'm going to add another half a cup of water. So that was 2.5 cups of water that I added. There we go. That's better. Now I'm going to let that come to a boil, right to a boil, and then I'm going to reduce down to a simmer. And then I'm just going to simmer this on the stovetop for about 45 minutes. And that is just a basic tomato sauce. Okay? Everybody, like I've mentioned on numerous occasions, everybody's might be a little different. That's just how I make mine. It's good. Nice flavor. It's still young. It's got to develop a little bit. You know, those dried herbs that are in there need kind of time to kind of mature. But that's a good start. Okay, so I'm going to turn that down because I know that my stovetop is a little temperamental, so even turning it down is going to boil. So now we have our basic tomato sauce, which will get us through our lasagna, and it'll get us through our pizzas as well too. So we've got that knocked out. Okay, so I'm going to let this simmer for about 45 minutes, and then we'll come back and we'll take a look and see what it looks like and 45 minutes. In the meantime, I'm going to do again a little bit of cleanup and then kind of get ready to do some prep for the soup. Okay, we'll make the soup.